What's going on there, friends? My name is M238, and I think today is finally the day where I finally answer you guys' long-lasting questions when it comes to versus. How do you make versus? What's the process behind making it? How do you choose your players? How can I get involved? There were several opportunities where I wanted to make this kind of video, but every time I try to make this kind of video, I feel like that I could always make it better as far as what I want to show in the process of making verses. But now I feel like I have an idea of how I want to display this type of tutorial video. For anyone who doesn't know how a versus video works, it takes quite a bit of effort to even make a video. It is not as simple as recording with your friends and then uploading it. So what I've decided to do is I want to show the full process from the moment I plan a versus to discussing how it works, to recording it, and then to finally editing it and publishing it to you guys. Because I feel like by showing the full process off, you guys will get an idea of how versus works and why I can't always make verses. As fun as these types of projects are, I can't always make them on a regular basis. The process behind making verses over the past 12 years that I've done these have always changed over time due to, personal growth. I learned new things in the editing process. I gain some new ideas from watching other people's videos, or I just simply want to try something different and hope that it works out. So because of that, I want to focus on how I do my current ongoing versus, which is Super Paper Mario. And the way I do this versus is going to be roughly similar to how I do some of my recent projects, as well as some projects that come in the near future. And if this process changes just a little bit in the near future, then this video is a general idea of how I make these videos. So the first step is, of course, choosing the game. Now, I've played a lot of games. As you might know, I have over 130 plus Let's Plays on my channel, and some of you guys might be surprised, not every single one of those games that I've LP'd on my channel are fit for racing. There are several different reasons why people will record the game that they record, whether it's for a Let's Play or a Versus. But for the versus of making a Versus, there are a few reasons other than just liking a game as to why I choose the games that I have done Versus of. I'll generally pick games that I really enjoy playing and have a lot of experience in, and feel like I am competent in playing the games. Other points to consider when choosing a game for a versus is, are there points within the game that you have to go through where there's going to be a moment where a player is going to mess up or die and lose several minutes to where the race just becomes a blowout. And very commonly, that's the case with most RPG games, as RPGs tend to have luck involved. That means you could just die randomly when you are racing, and therefore just lose so much progress that where your opponent could potentially just run away with the competition. 3D Mario games in particular don't really have those moments too much. The most that could happen is you could just die and lose about a minute each time. Other games such as a fictional novel like Danganronpa, Phoenix Wright, Persona, those games are very story heavy and they don't really have a lot of elements that would make it interesting to watch as a race. I am also one who really likes diversity when it comes to races because you're going to be watching multiple screens. So I choose games that have a lot of diversity. And as I said with fictional novels, where it's very story-based, there won't be a lot of diversity. But the 3D Marios tend to have a ton of diversity, where you are free to choose any level in any order with minimal restrictions, of course. And one of the things I really like about diversity is that it's not always obvious on who is in the lead. And in my opinion, I like that type of aspect in racing, as if I am watching a race where everybody is taking one route, then I'm more inclined into watching one screen, which is, of course, the leading player. Now, in the case of Super Paper Mario, the reason I chose that game is for about a few reasons. Super Paper Mario, I've talked about this, during my Let's Play, during the Versus, as well as in a few other Paper Mario LPs, that Super Paper Mario is my favorite game in the Paper Mario series. It is the game that I spent the most time on within the series. Why I think this would be interesting to watch as a race is that this is an action RPG game. So there's no battle systems, and how you plan out your points management in order to balance yourself out in levels as much as possible is up to the player. And all four of us have different approaches into how to manage our points throughout the game. Unfortunately, there's only very few opportunities where you'll see players diversify in routes with the way that we're doing the verses, and I will get more into this within the next segment of the video. Now, of course, anybody who starts making any kind of video, it comes with some kind of inspiration. People who watch this channel will know that my very first versus is Kaizo Mario World, way back in November of 2012. But what a lot of you guys do not know is that my very first versus is actually not Kaizo Mario World. It was actually way back in May of 2012, is Yoshi's Island, and my opponent was Axum the Goat, or formerly Chris Igor. I have been watching versus videos since 2011. When I came across a project on my recommendations list of Super Mario Sunshine Versus by Attacking Toucans and Josh Jepson. Anybody who has been an active Let's Player around this time might know that this is a very well-known series. I watched through all of it. It was very appealing, and the idea of playing a game side by side with another person was very appealing to me. And after observing through that whole race, reading through all the rules, and then I thought to myself, I'm pretty good at games. I have Let's Player friends, so what if I did something like that with my own friends and turn it into something really cool ourselves? And of course, since this was in 2011, I didn't really have an editing software that could even make verses at all. And then when Axum asked me if I wanted to be a part of his Yoshi's Island verses, I accepted because it was an opportunity for me to be a part of something really cool. It was definitely something to start off with for the both of us. It was both of our first versus projects, and it was also the first real project that we've ever done together. At around this time, we were only starting to know each other better and, become better friends with each other. But I like to think that the chemistry during this project was really great. Unfortunately, a little too competitive, but we both were significantly younger back then. We weren't as mature, but it was a really close race all around throughout the entire versus, and I like to think that that project was a pretty decent success at the time. After that project, I began to ask Axum, like, how do you do this? I want to try to do this myself. And so he taught me how to use Sony Vegas, showed me all around the basics of how to use Sony Vegas and how I could add in multiple tracks so that way I can fit in multiple screens. Once I understood that basic concept, now it was up to me organizing my own verses. So I picked out 3 people who could do what is probably the worst idea for our first verses, which is Kaizo Mario World, and we got to work. At the time, I like to think that that project was pretty decent for its time, but then nowadays when I look back at it and compare that to the quality of the verses that I do now, I'm not very happy with it. The video quality overall wasn't that great. I wasn't very good at editing yet at the time. The commentary definitely would have been better. And then the 2 biggest turnoffs, for me at least, is that none of us had audio, and also not everybody was able to survive throughout the whole versus. We had people quitting. We had just had to go on without the people who just didn't want to commit to the project anymore. Now, everybody has different reasons as to why they want to make Let's Plays or versus, but the main focus of this video is about versus. And so the main reason why I want to make versus and why it's been fun, why I've been doing it for so long, is because I like to test to see how well I can play through some of the games that I really like to enjoy playing in a competitive format. 95% of the games I've done a versus of, I have already done a Let's Play on. A lot of the time, as I play through a game as a Let's Play, I think about ideas of how this game would be fun if I take the format of the game and make it competitive, so that one day I could make it a fun game to watch as a versus. However, I will never do a versus immediately after doing a Let's Play of that particular game. You would always see a versus of a game that I've already done a Let's Play of several months or more after the Let's Play has been finished. Other reasons to make these kinds of videos is mainly to hang out with my friends. A lot of my relationships that I have built have been developed through making these types of videos. When I'm doing solo player Let's Plays, you only get my own perspective of the particular games that I'm recording, but when I'm doing a versus and I'm recording with other people, not only do you get my perspective of a game, but you also get other people's perspective, what their stories are, and maybe you guys can get to know them a little bit more. After determining what game I want to do a versus of, I begin to look for players who might be interested in competing with me on the same game. Now, a lot of people who do versus in general, they mainly focus on two-player races, and in general, I don't have a problem with two-player races. I've definitely done some on my channel, with the previous one being New Super Mario Bros. However, I try to pick out a group, particularly if I can get 3 or 4 players in a game, then I'm in for a pretty good project. Back when Skype was the norm of communication throughout the Let's Play community, Skype would have a thing where you could type in a little post and it would show up on your own profile. Hopefully somebody who looks through their contacts on Skype will see the post on your own profile. And so what I used to do back then is I would post who is good at this particular game. I am looking for 3 people, and I would wait about a week or 2, sometimes even 3, to wait for people to message me in response to what's on my profile. Most of the time, it's usually my friends responding to said game, and then we begin talking and working out the details. If it's a person responding that I am not as familiar with as people that I normally hang out with outside of YouTube and Twitch, then I would have to try and get to know them a bit more before I consider adding them to the verses. I do not just add any random person on my channel, as I would like to know them first, because I have no idea how they are going to be if I blindly accept them without any knowledge about them. Me looking for people and people responding is not an opportunity for someone who might be a potential troll to screw over the video's commentary just to be an attention whore and taking away all the spotlight just to be showcased on a video of mine. What I would do if there is a newcomer on my channel, then I would check out their channel, watch through a few of their videos to see if I like their content enough, and if their content is interesting to me, then I will get back to the player, send them a friend request, and add them to the group. In 2017 and onwards, the primary source of communication nowadays is Discord, and I have my own server where people who watch my videos or are just my friends hang out in my Discord, and I have a section in my server where I talk about video projects. And so if I'm in need of people to participate in a game that I want to do a versus of, I will post in that text channel the @LPer role who is interested in participating in a particular game. If I have nobody, then I would usually specify that, I would like to have at least 3 people. Because the truth of the matter is, I can only do a maximum of 4 players, and a lot of the time I try to achieve 4 players. Of course, I'm not always able to achieve that with all the verses that I've done, but 3 or 4 player verses are usually what I try to strive for. I like 3 and 4 player verses a lot more than 2 player verses, mainly because there is just more of the game that you guys can watch, which means you get to see more different play styles, more potential for the race to swing in one player's favor over another, regardless if they're in first, second, third, or fourth. More diversity, as well as just more things to talk about between the entire group. The drawback within these types of races is, unfortunately, trying to get everybody to be available at the same time. This is the reason why most people usually like to lean towards 2-player races, because all you have to do is just rely on one person to be available at the same time as you. It is much easier to communicate availability, and also in general, the editing process is just much easier with 2 players. To me, if I have to do a 2-player versus of a particular game, then I will usually go with it. Sometimes some of my 2-player projects actually become great. I was really happy with how projects like Ocarina of Time and Twilight Princess turned out, because I felt like I had decent chemistry with my opponents, as well as the quality of the race in terms of how close it was and how back and forth it was really amazing. As of 2021, I have been a bit more particular about choosing my opponents, because I want to make sure that my collaborators are able to have really good communication when it comes to deciding what day and what time to record a session of videos, and that if something were to happen, then they would let the group know at their earliest convenience. And if something were to happen and we're not able to go along with our original plan, then we try our best to work around it. I am not going to name any names to not call out anybody, but I have had collaborators in the past where they have lacked communication several times, and when it's time to a plan that a majority of people have agreed on, then they would either no-show or come up with some kind of excuse as to not record with the group, which screws the project over. A couple of misconceptions that I tend to get throughout these verses is I will pick a game that I know that I'll win, and that the players that I choose to compete with within these games are lower level than me in skill, so that I could have the best potential at winning these verses. And that is not true. The players that I pick are players who are good at games in general, who also have a decent knowledge within these particular games, and are willing to commit their time into preparing for the verses, and are just really good at communicating when it comes to coming up with ideas and planning out these recording times. I think picking out your collaborators is very important because you want to make sure that you have a healthy relationship with the people that you're working with. And if you're working with collaborators who you have a negative relationship with, then the presentation of the video is going to look awkward, and in the viewing perspective, it's going to show. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes when it comes to making verses that if you are just watching these videos, you might not get the whole picture. The other misconception that I tend to get is that people think I am cheating when I hold on to a lead for a very long time in the verses that I win in, which is, of course, nonsense. If me and my competitors are on emulator, then yeah, we use save states and such, only to set a checkpoint so that way we can resume off of where we left off, but during the race itself, no other emulator tools are used. But in the case of the 3D Mario games, since I tend to get this rumor quite a lot in the 3D Mario projects that I do, where I would pull off a trick that nobody else is going for, and that's not cheating. That's just something that I just happen to know. and the other players would not do it either because they don't know about it, or even if they do know about it, then they are not comfortable with doing it, so they choose not to do it in order to not lose more time than how much a trick would save. A lot of the times, whenever I hold on to a lead for a very long time in a versus, is mainly because I've done versus much longer than most of the people I've done versus with. So I just have a lot of experience with racing in general. So I just know really good strategies from just doing a bunch of verses and races over time. And of course, with that much experience, you tend to pick up backup strategies, what to do whenever something doesn't go well, how to reduce the amount of time that you're going to lose over your opponents if you know you're in a situation that you're going to lose time in. And in general, I just happen to know how to bounce right back with all the experience I've picked up from doing several verses over the past 11 years. It should also be worth noting that as of recording this video, I have done over 30 plus versus projects, and of those projects, I do not win every single versus. And in those projects that I don't win in, my opponents that overtake me just happen to be more competent than I am. And big respects to those players, because at least for some of them, they worked pretty hard to beat me. Or in some other cases, I would get unluckier than them, or just don't play as well as them. In the case of Super Paper Mario, Jason was the first person that I personally asked to see if he was interested in the game. A lot of you guys know that he is a regular on my channel. He has participated in the most amount of verses out of everybody. I have heard him mention many times on my videos that he has a passion towards the Paper Mario series, and so I figured that maybe he's a good candidate in competing with me in this game. For Mega Wii Master 1, I chose him because he is definitely passionate about the Paper Mario series. He is best known for the 1000-Year Door LP. It's been going on for quite some time, and I know for sure that he is really good at the Paper Mario games and not just the 1000-Year Door. And then I chose Whatchamagibbit because he's Mega's cousin. I wanted to give them the cousin versus cousin rematch. It's been a very long time since they have had that on my channel. And then also, he told me that this is the only Paper Mario game that he has played. So if it's the only game that in the series that he's played, that probably means he's pretty good at this game. After choosing the game and choosing my collaborators, it is now time to create the group and discuss how the project is going to work. So as previously mentioned, I create a group chat with all my competitors. Generally, whenever I'm planning a versus, I come up with rough notes and post them in the group chat to see what the players think, and if there's any modifications I should make to the rules that the players might think that it might make the versus better, then I am interested in listening. The whole idea within the group chat is to make sure that everybody is on board with the rules, so that way we don't get any surprises during recording that players did not know that they were not supposed to do something when it was discussed within the group itself. I expect that all my collaborators are actively engaging in conversation when discussing things related to the verses, so that way I know that they are also committing their part in the verses. A versus is not just like a single player let's play that you do on your own whenever you feel like it. You also have to rely on yourself as well as other people to make sure that the versus is a success. So if you have a group member or two who is not actively participating and doesn't read any of the chat logs, and that they finally decide to chip in whenever it is time to record, then that shows me that they are not putting their time within the verses, and I don't think that they are a good collaborator. It is nothing personal against them, but this is something that when you're making your own verses and you're creating your own group, You really have to make sure you're pushing your collaborators to ensure that you and your group have a good project to work on. As mentioned before, as I play through a game as a Let's Play, I think of ways to figure out how the game would be interesting as a race. I haven't thought about Super Paper Mario as a race up until relatively recently. After the Bowser's Fury Versus, I wanted to take a break from doing 3D Mario Versus. So I wanted to do something else. And during my break from 3D Marios, I came up with Super Paper Mario. It's been a while since I played the game, and I still think of it as one of my favorite games to play. So I decided to come up with rough ideas in my head as to how I think the verses would be interesting. I try to strive for 100% in games in general. Sometimes 100% can be interesting when you're 100%ing a game by yourself, but it may not be interesting to watch as a race. And Super Paper Mario was one of those challenges. In Super Paper Mario in particular, there's a lot that you have to do in order to 100% it, and a lot of its requirements are not particularly interesting to watch in a race perspective. I didn't want to make it just an any percent race because, again, I like diversity, and I feel like adding more things to do in the game adds more diversity. A lot of the times, any percent races in most games generally involves one route, which means you are seeing the same route on just multiple screens. And when I came up with this challenging conflict, I immediately brought this up to the group. What can we do to make this race interesting without doing all this unexciting stuff in a race? What we came to the conclusion of this discussion was that we agreed that every single 100% requirement, except for every pixel, would make the race pretty tedious. So we've came to the conclusion that we would do the race from start to finish, collecting every pixel except for one, which was Dash L. Dash L is located in the Pit of 100 Trials, the flip side Pit of 100 Trials, and the reason he is the only exception is because the flip side Pit of 100 Trials would be a huge roadblock in the race itself, because one player could be in the lead and be so far into it, and if you know anything about that dungeon, you can be so far into the dungeon and then die on like floor 95 or something like that, and then guess what? You gotta start the entire Pit of 100 Trials all over again, and if your other competitors are already far into the Pit of 100 Trials and they complete it, then guess what? You are automatically thrown out of the race because at that point you wouldn't really have a chance to catch up. Blowouts do happen in versus if a player dies so many times within a level itself in a platforming game, but if something like dying in the Pit of 100 Trials were to happen, then you just lose too much time. And in the viewing perspective, it really sucks. So in this case, the only thing that we would have to go out of our way for in this race is going back to 3-1 to get Barry, as well as doing a back and forth quest to get Piccolo, and then at the end of the game, try to grind enough coins to afford Tiptron. This means that in this versus, it is not over when you beat the game. You have to also try to get Tiptron. Not everybody might not be able to get 999 coins by the end of the game, which means they would probably have to grind by the time the post-game starts. So, as you're watching the verses, if you see someone ahead currently, then they might not be ahead as you might think, because maybe their low coin count might bite them in the very end. The other thing that was another challenge in planning out the rule set for this race is grinding. Now, Super Paper Mario is an RPG. Some people might not consider it an RPG due to lack of battle systems, but I consider it an RPG. There are levels, there are experience. That's what an RPG is. In projects like my Pokemon Versus, I have allowed players to grind off screen because when you're racing, you want to go fast, therefore you are skipping out on a ton of EXP, which means you would be underleveled throughout the game. In the beginning, my group didn't really have much of a problem with that when I did Super Mario RPG, but then later on during Pokemon Red and Blue, then into Pokemon Gold and Silver, the issue with grinding started to rise because some players within a group could grind more than others and abuse that rule and therefore be super over-leveled throughout the entire game and basically run into no issues throughout the entire game if they were to grind. And when the motivation that I wanted to do Super Paper Mario as my next versus came up, I knew that I was gonna have to bring up how we're going to handle grinding. Should the players agree to no grinding? That way there's no chance that players are going to abuse the off-screen grinding rule. Or if we allow off-screen grinding, how should we handle it? We have to have some sort of limitation as to how off-screen grinding is going to work. There has to be some kind of honor system because it's off-screen. No one's going to watch you grind off-screen. A few ideas popped up as to how we could handle off-screen grinding. One idea that I came up with is every 3 episodes you're allowed to time yourself for 30 minutes to get as many points as you can. The issue with this is that some people could find very efficient ways of grinding more than others and abuse that opportunity and get significantly more points than other players within a 30-minute limit. Whatchamagivit, on the other hand, made another suggestion in that we could do some sort of level curve and that you are allowed to grind as many points as you want up until a certain level at a certain point of the game. The issue with that is that some players get to some parts of the game over others, which means that once they are way past the point where they are allowed to grind off a curve, they are not able to even get to that curve because they're just past that point during the recording session, which means they would miss out on all of those points and be significantly underleveled over other players. After about several days discussing off-screen grinding, we have come to the conclusion that we are just not going to allow any kind of grinding and that all the points and all the levels are going to be shown on screen. That way, there is no chance that anybody is going to have an advantage or a disadvantage over other players, which that on its own adds a dynamic in strategy that, you know, what is the most efficient way in getting points so that way you're not too underleveled when it comes to fighting some of the tough bosses later in the game. Next up is the timer rule. As you guys know, we do not record verses all in one single day. Every episode is 30 minutes. You have 30 minutes to make as much progress as you can within every episode, which that on its own is quite a lot of time to make a decent amount of progress. A tradition to my well-known projects like my 3D Mario versus is that once 30 minutes is up, then we stop what we're doing and leave the level. And then on the next episode, we start from file select and pretty much just lose all the progress that we have made within the level itself, which that on its own, there are some advantages and disadvantages. If it was a really close race and players were really close to each other and then 30 minutes is up and they had to leave the level, then guess what? All of a sudden, the players are tied. If there was another close race scenario where one player barely gets a star just when the buzzer hits, but then the player really close to them just barely misses getting the star, then guess what? What now was once a very close race is now not as close, and the player behind will have to find some way to catch up. Super Paper Mario has a level-by-level system where every chapter is divided up into different levels. However, we cannot do the same 30-minute rule as in a 3D Mario platformer. It's very inefficient to leave a level in Super Paper Mario, and save points tend to be pretty far in between from one another in some of the longer levels. So because of that, what we just simply decide to do is that once 30 minutes hits, then we would just stop what we're doing. We pause the game, so that way in the next episode we can just resume exactly where we left off, so that way players don't have to worry about losing progress as soon as the episode is up. If the episode is the last episode that we plan to record for the day, then we have to compromise the 30-minute rule slightly, in that if a player was in the middle of dialogue, in the middle of a boss fight where they cannot backtrack at all, then we have to wait for that player to finish. That way all 4 of us can actually have an opportunity to save. And then the next time that all of us record together, then we just simply play up to where we left off. It doesn't have to be exactly where we left off, since we just can't do that without leaving the console on for about like a week or two without recording, which would be obviously a waste of power and is just not good for the console. After the rules have now been established, it is now time to prepare for the verses. So everybody has different ways in preparing for the verses. Some will play through the game and see what kinds of strategies that they can do during recording. Some people will take notes as to what they should do. Some people will maybe not play through the game and hope that everything goes well. And none of those strategies are particularly bad if you are competing in a game that you already have a lot of knowledge in. Now, I cannot speak for my competitors as to how they prepare for their verses, so I will just talk about how my preparation goes. A lot of you guys might know that I'm a guy who likes to win and has a decently competitive spirit about winning. So my preparation is just pretty simple. I just play through the game and time myself for 30 minutes at a time to see how far I go. The day before our planned recording day, I would play through parts of Super Paper Mario in 30-minute segments to see where I would go and take notes on any particular tricks that I might have picked up along the way, so that way I can remember to do them, as well as take notes on some parts that might help me skip a large part of the game. If I know that my opponents are going to be very competitive in their preparation within the verses, then I'll typically up my preparation a bit to ensure that I am competing with them as much as possible. A prime example is way back in 2014 and 2015 with Super Mario Galaxy 1 and 2. Multi-Game Master 1 and Mega Wii Master 1. I knew that both of them were going to try and overtake me in those two games, and so they have had multiple practice sessions prior to planned recording days to ensure that they could try and keep up with me as much as possible. So what did I do? I did my usual routine of playing through parts of the game for 30 minutes to see how far I can go, but I repeat the session to see if I can do better. Over the years, though, I've been a lot less competitive about winning, but the feeling of winning a versus is still satisfying to me. But I definitely wouldn't be upset at my players for overtaking me in a versus. I'm happy for the success of my players anytime they beat me in a versus, because I know that at that point they've worked pretty hard in order to beat me at the games that I was already good at before. At times, yes, there would be points where I'm a bit bitter if the race didn't go in my favor as much as I want, but at the end of the day, it is just a game. We are all here to have fun, and there's no real large prize pools at stake when it comes to these competitions. As long as everybody has fun in these projects at the end of the day, I think we have made a successful project. Alright, so the next thing to show off is the layout. So generally with the layout, I have always made the layout for all my verses. So the way I go about with making a layout is I use this program. It's called Paint.net. Paint.net is a photo editing software very close to Photoshop. It has quite a bit of features that you could do on Photoshop as well. However, I prefer using Paint.net. When you open it up, it looks something like this. I also have some extra plugins that if you're just downloading Paint.net by its default, you're not going to get. So you actually have to look for those plugins yourself. And honestly, Paint.net is much better if you decide to search for those plugins, which I'm not going to go over the plugins. And so to go about with the actual process is I go on the internet and I search up some things. Well, first I go onto Mario Wiki, since well, in the case of Super Paper Mario, Super Paper Mario is my primary source of information for Mario games. I'll look up some stuff about the game, and I'll go all the way down to gallery, and I'll go and see what they have here in terms of things that I could use for a potential layout. One thing in particular that I already see is I could download this, which I already have. And the reason I download this is mainly for Tippy. I'm not particularly interested in getting Mario. It is much easier getting this picture than this picture right here, because then I would have to find a way to crop out all the sparkles, and with all the sparkles all in the way would just add a ton of work that I don't need to add on. What I'm mainly interested in is a decent picture for a background. So as you can see, we already have some really cool ideas for a layout background. Got the backgrounds of pretty much most of the levels of the game. And we even have some more over here, but these are mainly just from screenshots of the game, and I don't want to use screenshots from the game. And if nothing is appealing on the gallery section, then I will just search up some stuff through Google instead. So originally, I wanted to try and look for something that looks like the pause screen from Super Paper Mario. So I'll go onto images and look for something that looks like a pause screen. I see barely any results, as we have the actual pause screen. I'm trying to look for the background of the pause screen, but we got the pause screen from Paper Mario as well as the Thousand Year Door, and not from Super Paper Mario itself. I wanted to use that background because I think the pause screen background looks really cool in that game. The general idea whenever I try to make a layout is I try to make the design similar to the game, so that way the versus looks like it's organically part of the game. And so when you watch the videos, one thing I came up with is this background. This is a background that I got from DeviantArt. This is the Lineland Road background from the game itself. And this is done by an artist known as Jay Wears Mittens on DeviantArt. And once I have it downloaded, it is time to get to work on the Super Paper Mario layout. So the first things first is you want to resize it. It's Control R to resize it, and I will match the video size, which is of course 1280 by 720. I will have all my pictures saved into a folder, which I'm not going to show. It's on my other screen. And once I found the layout, you could go onto here and open an image, or you could just simply drag the image, which I'm going to drag the image because I don't want to show my folder of all the pictures I have on my folder. So I'm going to go ahead and add layer. And I'm going to go ahead and fill the whole screen just like this. And then we're going to create 4 layers, because what I'm going to do now is right here, this is just another thing that Paint.net has, is you can go onto tools, and I'm going to create 4 rectangular boxes to represent 4 different screens. This is a 4-player versus, so you want to be able to see all 4 screens. What I do is I also increase the size of the rectangles as well to make them kind of thick. You can also change the colors of the rectangles using the color wheel over here. I'm gonna make the first one red, and we'll do this. And if I didn't like the size, then I could just move it, size it, do whatever. The point is that I'll put one probably around over here, and also make sure the rectangles are wide enough to match the game's ratio. It is a Wii game, so you want to make sure that the ratio is like widescreen. As long as you can select this rectangle like this, then you can change the colors and it will match what you desire here until you decide to do something else. And then my next thing to do is I'm going to create the second screen. Do it kind of close to the first screen as possible, and also make sure the screens are around the same size as well. So generally I'll like lean forward to make sure that the pixels look as correct as possible. I'll make this one look orange just because in Super Paper Mario everything has like different colors. And then I'll have third screen on the bottom. Okay, so it looks like my 2 screens are a little too big, but that's okay. This is just demonstration. But generally, if I run into an issue like this, I'll just try to make these screens smaller. But here's the bottom screen, and we'll make this one yellow down over here. The red, orange, yellow, and then the fourth's going to be green. Just represents in the game like what chapter you get the characters in. So like chapter 1 is a red chapter, so like the first player will be red. You get the second character before chapter 2, so like orange over here, and then your third character Bowser in chapter 3, and then your fourth chapter Luigi, which you won't get for a while, in chapter 7. And chapter 7 is a purple chapter. Make this one purple. And then once you have all 4 of your screens and you like the way your 4 screens look, then what I will do is I will actually merge these layers down. Then the reason I separate the layer, I have all 4. Oh, I actually should have made all these rectangles all in different layers, which is why I had 4 different layers actually. So that way, if I needed to edit something on one screen, then I can use one screen without interfering with the other screen. And then once all the screens are satisfied like the way I like them to be, then I'll merge the screens together. So that way I can have as little layers as possible, in order to make sure that this picture project has as little resources as possible, so that I can save space. The next thing of interest is, of course, the names. So we'll have, again, create 4 different layers, and we will create the names of all of the players that are participating in the verses. Traditionally, in all my verses, I color code everybody's names. Everybody basically just has a particular color that I just assign to them and stick with it every single time that they're in a versus with me. Where I assign players on which screen is 2 things: random, or what place they placed in the last time that they participated in a versus. In the case of Super Paper Mario, there were a little bit of issues. So we'll start with the bottom right here, actually. So we're gonna make this one green, this green right here, and we'll also change the size, probably around 45. And I also changed the font here. I also download some fonts as well, which you will have to look up yourself. And I use one of the Mario fonts. And one of the Mario fonts that I have is a font called Mario 256, which will look like the Super Mario World font. So we'll do Jason Matthew over here, and this will be Jason's screen. Now I put Jason on the fourth spot because he placed 4th in the last verses that he was in. So I'll put him in the bottom right over here. And then on the bottom left, I placed 3rd in my last verses. Well, my last 4-player verses, I placed 3rd. I placed 1st in the last verses I was in. So I guess technically I should be up on the top left, but I'll give somebody else the honor of being top left. So I'll place my screen right here, and my name's usually blue, mainly because blue is my favorite color in general. So I will just make myself blue. Jason's always been green. I actually don't know why. I just always put green under his name, and usually a light green, but Mega gave me a suggestion that light green would be too bright for this particular layout, so it'd be much harder to see Jason's name. Now for top left and top right, Watcha placed 4th in his last verses, and Mega was 3rd place in his last verses, so those two should be bottom left and bottom right, but because they weren't in the immediate last verses, I had to make some compromises with these two. I remember that Watcha wanted to be on the top right because he just coincidentally been on the top right for every versus except for 3D All-Stars. So I gave him the honor of being on top right again. So I will type in whatchamagivit over here. He will be on the top right. And then the top left, the honor goes to Mega again. He was actually the top left during the round 2 of Mario Galaxy. And it looks like the names, these two guys have very large names. Generally, when players have names that are too long, then I will either shorten their name, which I generally try not to shorten people's names, because that way people can actually search up their full username. That way, like, it's easier to search them up if viewers like the players enough to search them up. So shorten their name is like the last thing I would do. Otherwise, I would try to just squeeze the names to make them fit like this. So then I need to make these squares transparent, so that way I can actually put the videos into the screens. So what I would do is I would go onto background, I would click here on selection, and I would zoom into the picture a little bit, and I will highlight it inside the square as much as I can, and cut out the background image, not the actual paint.net background. And then once we have cut out the background image within the squares themselves, then I zoom back out, and in order to make them transparent, so that way like it shows on the video, is I just uncheck this. That way you can tell that this is transparent, and then what I do is I will save as, and I will usually save the picture project in as two different files. One as a paint.net file, so that way if I need to edit it, then I have a paint.net file ready so I can edit it, as well as a PNG file, so that way I can keep the transparency within these squares here. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the paint.net image of the actual layout itself, which looks like this. So yeah, a little bit better than this. I actually tried to replicate it as much as possible. Let's just say that I did my best here. Oh, the tippy thing. So this is actually new to Versus, where I actually have a lead indicator. That way you guys have a general idea of who's in the lead. So what I would do is, with that Mario and Tippy picture that I was mentioning about, I would drag it in here, I would add layer, and now I need to try to get Mario out of the way. So what I would do is I would use lasso select, and I will circle around Mario, and then cut. And then I can select Tippy, and now I have just Tippy to work with. Then I will just size it so that way Tippy is small enough, so that way like Tippy is not like in the way of the screens, like kind of around here, and then put her on like the corner somewhere over here. Oh, and then also, if you're wondering how I made these little outlines around the text of our names, I just simply, well, first off, I'm gonna merge these since I don't need to edit these names. I'll just go ahead and highlight all these names since I want them all to have the same outline color. And I will go to Object Outline, and can choose the color of what I want the outline to be, and I also make sure that the width is not too large. Around 4 points is what I use the width for the names here. I click OK, and now everybody has a white outline around their names. And I feel like outlines are great because it allows viewers to read the names much easier. That's how I made the layout to be somewhere along the lines like this. And then of course, if someone takes the lead, then what I would do is I would highlight Tippy on paint.net and move her to a different screen. Like if Wudja takes the lead right here. So I'll have basically 4 different copies of the Super Paper Mario layout, with Tippy being in everyone's screen. And then if someone takes the lead, then in editing, I know that I need to grab the layout that has Tippy on somebody's screen that's in the lead. The finished product would look something along the lines like this. And this is what the layout looks like with Tippy on Mega Screen if he was in the lead. Then after I finish making the layout, then I'll usually try to get some feedback on how the layout looks and if there's any changes that the players suggest. So I'll go over to our Super Paper Mario Versus group, which has all of us over here. I'm going to jump over to when I posted the layout. So this is my draft over here, and this is where Mega made a suggestion that Jason's name should be darker green. I made that change. Now here's the next draft of the layout. And in the same comment that Mega suggested a darker green, he actually wanted the star from the text boxes, but I couldn't find that anywhere. So I instead opted to use Tippy as the lead indicator. And as you can see right here, you can see that these boxes are see-through, transparent. And then I actually pin the layout so that way people know what the layout looks like. And if everybody is on board with the layout itself, then now it is time for the next step, which is to record. So I am not in the position to speak for my competitors on what their setup is recording. So I will show you guys my setup for recording. So I of course have my computer here. It is connected on a monitor screen, which I can use as a TV screen. As proof here, I can just do this, and it is now a computer screen, just like that. So this setup is nice. If you've been on my channel for a long time, know that my setup used to be in a playroom where it was open and there was other people behind me all the time when I was recording. Now I'm in my room. I have all the privacy to record and say whatever I want without somebody questioning what I say is embarrassing. Now, the unfortunate part about this setup is it is less convenient for Wii games, which is a big reason why I haven't recorded Wii games in a very long time. The sensor bar is right here. The sensor bar used to be in a very comfortable position back when my setup was in the playroom. So I have to have the sensor bar like this, because I don't have a lot of room on my desk. My desk is really small, believe it or not. I also have water, because you're gonna be talking while recording, so you want to make sure you stay hydrated, so that way your voice doesn't wear out on you. So like if I need to point, I have to sit I have to deliberately move back and aim the sensor bar in a way where I can actually point. Okay, actually I can't even demonstrate it because I actually don't have Tippy on this file. Okay, yeah. So I have to like awkwardly position my Wii remote to the sensor bar and like move back on my seat. And my monitor screen is pretty small, so I don't usually like to lean back just to point at the sensor bar. Anyway, yeah, so I have my console here. I'm playing off the Wii U for this versus instead of my Wii, because this monitor screen does not actually have component output. It only has HDMI output, so I have to play off my Wii U. I don't like it because it's not as authentic as playing off the actual Wii. Down here is a mess, but here's my capture card. I use Elgato. Here's the cable that's going straight to my computer. Over here's my mic. And then if you go back over here, I have 2 HDMI outputs. The first one being to my computer screen, and the other to my console. What's convenient about the setup is that since my computer screen and the console are very close together, I can very easily monitor what's happening on my computer through the corner of my eye while I'm playing through the game. So like if something were to happen to my recording, or like I'll have Discord open sometimes, and like if some emergency happens during recording and somebody is typing in our versus group, then I'll be able to read it off the corner of my eye while I'm playing, and if something actually did happen, then I just tell my opponents to just pause real quick. Alright, so a little bit of history about recording audio. In 2012 all the way up to 2016, we used to use what's a program called MP3 Skype Recorder. It was a very simple program that allowed you to record the Skype call, and you would just hit the record button right before you enter a Skype call, and then you stop the recording whenever you're done recording the Skype call. And it was a nice program because it recorded everybody. It was all synced up. Unfortunately, I stopped using MP3 Skype Recorder because Skype had major updates to where MP3 Skype Recorder just couldn't be supported with the new version of Skype. And whoever was in charge of the software of MP3 Skype Recorder just didn't want to update the software. From 2016 all the way up to 2022, me and my group would record our own commentary on our own. So then what we would do is, or at least what I would do is, I would open up Audacity, which is how I used to record audio, and I would just hit the record button over here and then hit the stop button over here. And then if I needed to make some changes, then I would just go into I would just highlight a part that I would want to cut out and then just do Control X or something. If I wanted it to be cool, then I could add in some effects. What I've actually started to do recently is at the end of every recording is I go up over here and go to noise gate, and this basically just reduces the airtime that you hear through my mic. I have a fan behind me, so you would definitely hear the fan, but with the noise gate usually filters the fan out. But yeah, and then I just export it as a WAV. And everybody would do the same thing. And then what they would do is they would send me their audio files, and I would try my best to sync the commentary as accurately as possible. And then in 2022, I found a program called Craig. So what Craig is it is a Discord bot that you add to your server, and with a simple command, it will join the call. And when it's in the call with you, then it will record the Discord conversation that you're having with the people that you're in the call with. I started using this bot during preparation of the Super Mario 3D World Let's Play. And I use this bot because Danielle isn't really into recording that much, and so rather than trying to teach her how to use audio recording programs so that way she could send them to me, I didn't want to go to that effort with her, so I decided to search up some methods of how to record a Discord call, and I came across Craig, and it looked like a reliable bot that could record the call, and it had some pretty good reviews. So here's my server. I usually use all my commands so I don't clutter my server up over in robot commands. Then what I would do is, well, assuming, let's just pretend that I'm in a call with somebody, I would go over here to recording room in my server. This VC room is locked behind anybody who does not have a LPer role. So if my participants do not have the LPer role, then all I gotta do is go over here to roles. The clapper here is the LPer role using another bot called CarlBot, but that is not important. I'm not going to go over what CarlBot is, and just simply react to it. And then if you react to it, then guess what? You already have the role itself. I do not have to assign it to you. Saves me effort, and then now you can join the recording room voice channel. So then, now that you join the voice channel, then you go to robot commands and then just type in /join, and then when you enter the command, then Craig will join into whatever voice channel that you're in, and it's going to start recording the call. You'll get a DM message, which will look something along the lines like, now, when the recording stops, then it'll give you a download link, or you can delete the recording if you'd like. The download link for this particular recording, you just simply click download, and the download link would be here, but it is not because the download link actually expired. So you actually have 6 days after you record using Craig to download the audio file. This is what a non-expired download link looks like for Craig. As you can see, it has all the people who were in the call. We recorded yesterday, and we recorded in the VC channel. It was in my server. I started the recording, and you could download the audio file in many different formats. I choose the Audacity project, and it'll download as a WinRAR file where it has all 4 audio tracks, 1 for each person. So then what I would do is, so then I know that it is the correct audio file. When you download the Craig file, it'll look something along the lines like this. So obviously I'm not gonna know what this is if I have downloaded too many Craig files. So I just rename it to something that I know what it is when I go to open up the WinRAR file whenever I need to. This is what it'll look like once you open it up. And as you can see, it has everybody here. So this is Whatcha's audio track, Jason's audio track, Mega's audio track, and my audio track. Now, the convenient thing about using Craig is that if someone were to disconnect from the call, Craig is still recording their audio, which is good for me, so that way I don't have to find a way to sync up their commentary, because all 4 of these are actually all synced up together. They are all recorded all at the same exact time, so that I don't have to do any effort in syncing these audio files up. Now, everybody is recorded in OGG file, which Vegas does not support. So then what I would do is I would export all 4 of these files into a separate folder that I have where all my recordings are at. Again, I'm not going to show it. And then what I would do is I would try to convert them to a file that Vegas actually supports. So I'd open up Audacity. I use Audacity to convert these audio files because I just think it's very easy to do that through Audacity. There's other programs that you can use to convert different files to a file that you actually want, but I'm very simple, so I just keep it like this. So I would import Whatcha's audio on Craig over here, and I don't need to do any editing. I'll just do the editing in actual editing itself, and then export them. And basically just repeat the process for all 4 of us. Also, if I need to adjust the volumes of somebody, then I could just add a gain over here, because sometimes some people talk pretty quietly, and unfortunately, even when you adjust the volume of somebody in the call itself, that's only your own volume and not their volume of the call in general. So far, I've only had to do that for 1 single person throughout the history of using Craig. Okay, so all 4 audio files are now exported to a format that I can use in Vegas. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete the original OGG file, which I'm doing on my other screen now, so you guys can't even see it. I have to delete it now. And so that's how we record the Discord call. Now to record the videos, again, I'm going to be showing how I record my perspective. So I use Elgato Game Capture HD, hence my capture card. Many people use OBS, but I like to use whatever comes with my equipment in order to maximize the quality as possible for my videos. And so here is the Elgato software. This is what it looks like. I've shown off this before in a previous video. I'm gonna go and wake up my TV up. In this software, I'm not gonna go too much into how to use this software. I've already done that in a previous video already, so you can go check that out if you like. I generally like to hear the sound while I'm recording because I just think it's great. I also listen to the sound off of my monitor as well. But yeah, here's a record button, and it's also a stop button as well. And now for the timer. Some of you guys might wonder, how are we keeping track of time throughout the episodes? Now, for one, there is an on-screen timer, so you guys have a visual understanding of how much time there is, as opposed to relying on the video duration. But in order to keep track of the time, I use this program. If you're a speedrunner, you know what this program is. It's called LiveSplit. I'm gonna close these splits right here. And I just have a timer here for LiveSplit. I'm not gonna go over how to use LiveSplit, but if you're just using it as a timer, then all you really need is just this. What you want to do is go to right-click, edit splits. You do not need the game, you don't need the category. And you go to start timer at -30 minutes. And then hit OK, and now it is offset by -30 minutes. And that is how I keep track of time during the episodes themselves. Once I have the timer ready and all four of us are confirmed that all of us are ready to start playing, we all hit the record button, not at the same time, which means that I do have to go in editing and try to sync up our gameplays as much as possible. But fortunately, all four of us should start at the same time when we count down to start every episode. So it's really easy to actually sync up the videos themselves. Now, unfortunately, because you're looking at the software through a delay, you're not going to actually see me start at the same time in real time, but just trust that I'm starting in real time on my other screen here. You could hit start timer somewhere right here, or you can hit a hotkey, so that way you don't have to go over to start timer right here at the same time. So I do have a hotkey to start the timer. That's the hotkey right there, and I can just reset the timer to another hotkey. Once everybody is ready, like everything's recorded, Craig's in, and everybody's ready to start playing, then what we would do is, well, we actually start on home, actually. We would do a countdown here. So 3, 2, 1, go. Hit the timer, and then it is time to start playing. And then once we start playing, then that's when we say our stuff here. Hey everybody, welcome back to Super Paper Mario Versus. Once I see that live split has hit 0, then we hit the home button. And that is when time is up. So at the end of each episode, well, the way Elgato works here is after I stop, then I have to wait for this program to fully export my video before I can do anything. And then once it's fully exported, then you're ready to start another recording. Or if we're done, then I can just simply close the software. Now, the cool thing is that if you're in my server, then you guys get to see that we're recording something, but y'all won't know what exactly we're recording until it actually goes up. So after the session is over, then I try to ask my group to send me their video files, so that way I can download them and edit them. I already have my video file, so I don't have to wait on myself. I believe this is Jason's, so we're gonna go ahead and go into Jason's and download his episode 3 over here. Whichever method people use to send me their video files is entirely up to them. Some people will upload them as a YouTube video and upload them as unlisted, so that way only I can see it. I'm gonna go ahead and hit download. Mega has also uploaded his onto Google Drive, so I'm gonna go ahead and download. Oh no, Mega actually, oh no. I need to actually contact Mega. Now, Whatcha, fortunately, he uploads his video files into a folder and shares a folder with me. So that way he doesn't have to keep linking his video every single time. So I'm gonna go ahead and download his video files. Oh my god, 7 gigs, Jesus Christ, Whatcha. Alright, so the next step is editing. So editing is probably going to be the bulk of the process of Versus here. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull up my editing software, which is Sony Vegas. I'm currently using 16 right now, but I have been using the Sony Vegas to edit all my Versus, as well as all my videos in general. I am my own editor when it comes to these videos here. I have been offered before people wanting to edit videos for me with Versus, but there's nothing personal against editors, but the reason I have not considered having someone edit videos for me is because I know what I want in my own videos, because I'm sure you're all very talented, but let's get started here. First off, this is what Vegas looks like when you open it up. You could import your stuff here, but I'm gonna drag everything like usual just so y'all don't see my folders. Drag the 4 audio files that I exported from Craig. Then what I'm going to do is I am going to import the video files of all of us. So there we go. Everybody has their names on their video files, so that way I know whose is who, except for Jason's, but Jason's the only one who hasn't had their name on it, so I already know that it's his. And I know what my own video file is, so I don't need to put my own name on my own video file. This one says Crash Bandicoot because I was recording Crash Bandicoot during the process of making this versus. And as a bonus, if I had an intro for these verses, then I would include that too, but I do not have a video intro for this versus. It's just something that I kind of just stopped doing over time. I'm going to import the layout. This is SPM layout 3 because Tippy is on my screen and I am player 3 of the verses. The outro picture for the end screens of the video. Some potential sound effects that I have went on Google download and know what to use for later on. I know that I at least want to use these 3 sound effects because these are the 3 sound effects that I generally use most often. I will add more sound effects later if I need to down the road. And then finally, the music that I'm going to be using for the outro, which is, of course, Ultimate Show from Super Paper Mario. This is my starting point because I got to import a lot of stuff because you're going to be using a lot of stuff when making verses. So starting out is probably the hardest part when editing because you're going to need to set the whole video up before even watching through the videos. We're gonna first start off with the layout. I'm gonna go ahead and do this. Next, I'm going to import all the audio files here in a different track. The nice thing about Sony Vegas compared to, let's say, Movie Maker is Sony Vegas has like a lot of different tracks that you can use. If you're using Movie Maker, then you only have 3 tracks, which is the video track, the audio track of the video, as well as a text track for the text. I usually import the audios in order of the screens. That way it's like easier for myself. And then what I would do, since all 4 of these audio files are all separate, is I will try to group them. So what I'll do is I'll click on all 4 of them by holding Control and click, and right click and create new. So that way all the audio tracks are together in one go. So that way, like if I move one, then it moves all 4 of them. All right, so now I will add the videos. So I'm gonna go and start off with megas. First off, I will stretch this all the way to the end over here. So that way, this is the layout length is the duration of the video. Now, I have the video behind the layout because, as you can see, PNG picture of the layout, you can actually see through the squares. I usually mute the videos first because I need to sync the commentary with the videos, and I'm going to be doing that after I import all the videos into the tracks. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go and right-click on the video track, go to Video Event Pan Crop. It is currently showing on my other screen, so I'm going to go and move it over here. That way you guys get an idea of how I do this. I'm going to go ahead and first up say no on maintain aspect ratio. I'm also going to uncheck these. And I'm going to zoom all the way out. And we're going to zoom this all the way out until it matches those squares. Now, because the Wii home menu has a lot of black in it, it's kind of hard, so what I would do is I'll click on a part of the video. Okay, right around there is great because there's a little bit more colors to know if this is like a line. It doesn't have to be like exactly perfect, but I like to make sure that this is really good. Make sure that this is called move freely, so that way I can move the this little square around wherever I want. Okay, right around there is where I would crop Mega on the layout. Now, of course, I would save this every single time, so that way I don't have to keep doing this every single time, and that way I can keep the same exact position for every video. So with that being said, I will drop down the preset list, I think it's top left. So I will click on top left, and this is the and that way I can keep Mega's position on the screen every single time. And I will do the same thing for everybody else, as I have a preset for everybody else. So I would go ahead and import Watcha's video. Right click over here, and drop down, do top right, and then also make sure you do this too. And look at this, Watcha's screen is now perfectly aligned with his position of the layout. Alright, so everybody's screens are all lined up, and so what I will do next is I will try to sync the commentary up with everyone's video. So this is the part right here where I was counting everybody down on 3, 2, 1, go. So I will listen to 3, 2, 1, go, and right before I say go, I will pause the video, split the audio track. 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, so I'll probably go right around over here and split the audio. And then I will go through everybody's video and determine when they unpause. Because everybody will generally start at around the same time. They don't start at exactly the same time, but that offset doesn't make much of a difference within the commentary itself. So I usually just make it look like everybody started at the same exact frame. So right around there is where Mega hits start, and then just to make it so that way, like in case I make like a mistake and accidentally move his video, then I'll usually just do this over here, because I set it so that Vegas will snap with this little like black line. Now I gotta do the same thing for Watcha and me and Jason. Okay, so everybody's videos are about synced up with each other. Gameplay synced up, commentary synced up with each other. And because this is all just banter before the actual episode starts, I can just cut this out over here. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add another audio track, because what's going to happen is I'm going to add this, which are beeps. If you're wondering what the countdown beeps are, the countdown beeps come from this little program right here. It's called Flow Timer. You might have heard of this if you've watched Pokemon speedruns. People use this to manipulate RNG in Pokemon. Basically what I'll do here is I'll set the offset to about 4,000, which is 4 seconds and 0 milliseconds right here. The interval is set to a beep per half a second. So I'll just have the interval up to 1,000, so that way it beeps every single second, and then we'll just have 4 beeps because it's gonna be 4 seconds. And then there's what is this one right here? Okay, so it's that, but the beep that you hear in the videos themselves sound like this. So then with a simple hotkey, I will just press Flow Timer. I actually record this, by the way. It would just sound like this. And that's the gist of where this comes from. The countdown beeps it makes it so that if people are somehow racing along with the videos, then they have a countdown themselves. I'll cut out this part, so that way the beep starts on the very first frame of the video. And then on this beep, this is the very last beep, which is the beep to go. Is where I will move everything over to this particular frame of the video. And then I can just do this over here as well. Alright, so then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add 2 video tracks. This video track is if I want to add anything during the video. And then this video track is the on-screen timer that you see in the videos. Because the on-screen timer is just something that I tried implementing during a few Versus projects in the past, such as the 3D Mario Relay. But then I started learning more things about Vegas, and I started implementing the timer back. Mario 64 Rematch to future versus projects, I've been using the on-screen timer on these videos. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to legacy text under media generators, and so the text will appear, and this is actually how I type in stuff when I'm editing videos, but what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to have a blank text here, and I'm going to make the duration to 30 minutes exactly, and we're going to drag this all the way out. Then I'm going to do a right click and media fix, and I'm going to find Vegas timecode. And so now, as you can see, a timer has appeared on the screen. So then I'm going to drop this down on the time. I'm going to put this on the middle, and then in the middle over here, so that way it is around the middle. So then what I do next is, you see the 0 hours, 0 minutes, 0 seconds, and 0 milliseconds. How I get that out of the video is I go to video event pan crop, and then I am going to check the mask position, which will then means I can work off of this part of the tool. Otherwise, under this track is where I work on positioning. So we're working on masking. I'm going to go ahead and mask basically just the part that I want within the timer itself. And what this does is it's a special kind of cropping. If you really don't want a specific part of the video to show. So I do this in order to take away the parts of the timer, so that way only the minutes and seconds show. So then you might notice that now we have just a black box around the timer. So then what you do here is you go over here and go to composition mode and click on add. Alright, so now the next question to ask is, how do you make it count down? To make it count down is you gotta go to insert envelope, go to velocity, drag this all the way down, and guess what? Now it's starting at 2959.9999999. And it will count all the way down to 0, all the way at the very end over here. I'm kind of an OCD type of person, so if something looks a little bit off, then I kind of want to fix it. So what I will do next is I will go to I will click on over here, go to track motion, and this allows you to move the entire track around. So I can basically just move the timer like around here. I do have a preset for this, so I'll just use the preset instead. Okay, I was a little bit off, that's okay. Alright, so I see a little dot right there, so I'm going to go ahead and go over here and crop that tiny little dot, that way it's not noticeable within the video itself. And so with that, we have like one more step, and that is of course audio over here. So I will have audio playing for the leading player, which in this case it is me. So I will have my audio up by around here. Now because for some reason my capture software records this game's audio very loud, I will usually like turn it down on this track over here by a little bit. I can adjust this as I go, so but around there is fine. And with that is the whole setup process of every Versus episode. And so now all I gotta do is just watch through the episodes to make sure that everything is great, and then as I watch along and listen to the commentary, as well as watching through all 4 screens to see if there's something I need to add, I will go onto Google and search up any type of assets that I want to use in order to have visual aids for whatever people are talking about. And then of course, every once in a while, whenever somebody spills out an oopsie, I use this sound effect over here. Also, in theory, if someone were to die, then I have this Link to the Past sound effect that I will use, drag it down to this audio track that I can that I have no use for other than the countdown beeps. Go on to media generators, go on to drag sample text down over here, and I will type in death count number 1 as nobody has died. It's kind of hard to die in this game. Also, like adjust the text size if I need to. 24. Change the font if I need to, as well as changing some of the colors and some effects if I need to. But then, more importantly, place the text on whoever's screen has died, and then add the sound effect at the same time as if someone were to die. And because when you're making a versus video, with all of this, you're going to be using up a lot of resources, so you're more likely to crash your editing software than if you were to make a Let's Play video. So most of the time, whenever I make something on the videos, I will generally save very often. More often than not, it's incredibly frustrating when you make so much progress editing and then you lose it all because your editing software decided to crash. Alright guys, so this is the end of the process of my editing. As you can see, this is what it would look like here at the end of this particular episode. As you can see, I have some parts here where I have Ocarina of Time clank sounds from people swearing. I added a Danganronpa slide in and slide out effect for something that I wanted to transition into here. As you can see, this is kind of the part in the episode where Mega and Watcher were talking about their Gamers Garage collab, so I displayed a visual of what it looks like in case people are to search up what the Gamers Garage Kirby's Return to Dreamland LP looks like. And there's really not a whole lot of assets that I wanted to add in this episode, so it kind of saved me some effort. But the point is this is pretty much what a typical versus episode will look like on my Vegas project. At the end of the episode, I would go over here, go to render, and then just render it. I'm not going to render it on the video because it'll lag the recording of this current segment of the video. Also, the render will take about 2, 3, maybe even 4 hours because I use a lot of resources in one video project when making verses. But when the video is finished rendering, I'll usually play on my computer, which I will load up right now. And the video will look like this here. As you can see, it looks
hello everybody.
About how I want it to look like here.
Up and down and all around. It's the newest.
So then the next part of the process here is, of course, to upload the video. So what I will do is I will go over here, go to upload video. You can drag the video or you can select it from your computer. I'm going to drag it in just so I don't show my, don't show up my folders. And then we begin uploading. So we'll call it versus. The reason I have versus up on the front instead of after the game title is just a legacy reason. When YouTube used to have shows, and making shows was an exclusive thing for YouTube partners. Most Let's Players would have a show for every game, but I had a show for Let's Plays and a show for Versus, and every Let's Play would be its own season. And same with Versus. I would have different seasons for Versus. And then, of course, YouTube took away the shows feature, but I still kept it like this because it just legacy reasons, and I'm also just too lazy to change every single video title to be Super Paper Mario Versus. And then if there are any cards or end screens, then I'll usually do that. I usually worry about these like towards the scheduled day that this Versus will go up. And since I'm showing myself uploading the video, I'm gonna have to schedule it and not release it as public right away. Otherwise, you're gonna see what the episode before this particular video goes out, even though it's already going to be like that. But the point is I'm going to schedule it. As of recording this video, I do not know if this is going to go up on July 22nd, but let's just estimate that it's going to go up on July 22nd. And then I'm going to... verses usually go up at around 10 a.m. in West Coast time, so I'm going to add it as 10 a.m., which to most people would probably be either 12 or 1 p.m. And then click schedule, and then I wait for the video to upload. And with that, that is the entire process of making a Versus project from start to finish. Every single Versus episode that you have seen up until now is everything that this video is teaching you. There's one topic I forgot to cover in this video, and that is bonus races. So, the first Versus that has had a bonus race is the Twilight Princess Versus, where Little Saplays and I raced through the Cave of Ordeals after finishing the game. What made us want to do that, even though we finished racing through the game? Well, that's because the Cave of Ordeals is a really cool part of the game where you are going through 50 rooms of fighting enemies, and it's just really hard. And because Lil Sat and I did not go through the Cave of Ordeals at all throughout the main race, we both thought that it would be really cool if the both of us decided to see who could race each other down 50 floors of fighting enemies to see who could do it the fastest. Bonus races are ideas that I have had in mind even before Twilight Princess, but Twilight Princess was the first Versus. But Twilight Princess was the first Versus that Little Sat and I were able to make work successfly. What warrants a Versus having a bonus race at the end of the main competition mainly implies for non-100% Versus, where if there's a part of the game that is very interesting but is not worth it in the main competition because either it's just too far out of the way or it just takes too much time within the main race to even do it, then my group and I would usually discuss amongst each other, hey, this is a pretty cool part of the game, and I think we should race this part of the game after the main race is done because I think it's really cool to show off. Are bonus races impactful in the overall results of the Versus? Not really. The bonus races are just a little more extra content for the viewers to watch after all the excitement in the main race. Plus, there's two different scenarios when it comes to bonus races. If a player has already won the main competition, then the bonus race is their opportunity to defend their throne. But then there's also, if a player didn't do quite as well within the main competition itself, then they can gain redemption and hopefully overtake the winner of the main race, so that way the loser doesn't feel completely hopeless throughout the Versus itself. Bonus races aren't the main priority when it comes to Versus projects, unfortunately, and that's because sometimes my group and I want to settle down after putting in so much time within the main competition itself. So in a lot of situations, if we feel like we're ready for a bonus race, then we'll do the bonus race. But then sometimes that does mean that viewers are waiting potentially years for a planned bonus race to happen, and then the next thing you know, either a life-changing event happens or even something else would happen between one group or another that prevents the bonus race from even happening at all. Now, Super Paper Mario is going to be the first Versus where there's going to be multiple bonus races. In fact, all four of us are very much motivated to work on these bonus races as soon as the main race is over. For those who missed out on the first episode, the bonus races include the flip side and flop side Pit of 100 Trials and Samurai Kingdom. These three parts of the game are three major points that unfortunately just take too long in the versus itself to not include within the main competition, but the four of us still want to have competition within these three parts of the game, which is why we all agreed that we are going to do these as bonus at the end of the race. What makes all three of these points interesting enough for us to race them? It's simply the difficulty. These are notoriously three of the hardest parts of the game, and not very many players who played Super Paper Mario have even completed this at all. And the fact that all four of us are even crazy enough to compete in the three hardest parts of the game, I think would make a very exciting race to watch as a versus. Viewers will be on the edge of their seat to see if a player is going to die when they make it very far in within one of these points, or if everyone survives, who is going to do it first. So, this video was very long, but I hope that after watching this video, you learned something about how making a versus works, and that the process of making even one episode of a versus is not as easy as some people might think it is. Now, of course, there are people who do versus on their channels, and they might do theirs differently than I do, and that's okay. There's no definitive way of doing a versus. Everybody has their own styles, and whichever method works for them, works for them. And if this video inspired you to make a versus of your own on your channel, then you don't exactly have to copy all my methods. This whole process just works for me and has always stuck with me throughout the 11 years that I have made versus. And it is possible that years after this video is up that I could alter my process a bit, but this video is a general idea of how I make a versus from start to finish. And honestly, I couldn't have made it this far in my 11 years on YouTube without the help of my collaborators as well as the support of you guys. I've learned so many things from the different people that have worked with me on my channel, and I'm glad that for those who have been multi-time participants on my channel have stuck with me for as long as they have. These projects are definitely not easy, and I wish I could pay you guys back somehow with you guys working with me and for me for free. And it's been a wild 11 years on this channel, and I don't see myself planning to quit anytime soon unless I have some major reason to stop. I want to especially give a shout out to Pooper Nitram, or his channel is called Proxy Foxy now. Thank you for being my very first subscriber and my very first YouTube friend, and for being a big inspiration into helping me improve and be the YouTuber that I am. And honestly, if you weren't around, I feel like I wouldn't be as successful on here as I am. Thank you to all the people who have participated in my verses at least one time or more. I wish I could name all of you, but the lists would be too large to name them all. But I especially want to thank Mega, Watcha, and Jason for participating with me into what I think would be a really cool versus to watch and do. And then finally, thank you to all you guys for even watching these videos, whether it's versus or my Let's Plays. And if you want to keep up with me outside of YouTube, I stream a few times a week on Twitch, mainly of speedruns and online multiplayers, and every once in a while, maybe even a blind playthrough of something that I'm interested in playing on stream. I post regularly on Twitter, and I am also very active on Discord with my own server. If you want to have an opportunity to hang out with me and the community, or even have an opportunity to participate with me, if you feel like that's something fun to do. I'm always open to answer any questions that you may have, whether it's through the comments, Discord, or even social media. I always try to get back to people who message me whenever I can, so please don't hesitate to even say like a simple hello. And with that being said, thank you all so much for watching this video. And again, I hope you learned something. Maybe this video might inspire you to make your own type of content. So thank you all so much for watching. Keep watching the Super Paper Mario verses and other verses that'll come in the future. And also subscribe for, daily Let's Play videos. See you guys in the next video.